All right, we'll call our public, we have a public hearing on our millages for this year. So we'll call that public hearing to order this Tuesday, August the 20th, 2024. This is the annual public hearing that's required before the board votes on what millages it will collect for this coming up year in property taxes. Mr. McNeely, you want to open us up?
So this is a public hearing, so we're just allowing anyone to have public comment at this time. Y'all receive any public comment?
For these, we just open the mic up. So the thing that we're having the hearing on again is on
The adoption of the adjusted 2024 millage rates. The proposed resolution number 2 would set the constitutional district number 100 at 4.06 mills. It would set Hammond District 1 alternative program at 3 mills, and it would set the Hammond District number 1 Hammond magnet tax schools at 15 mills.
and again each year we adopt a resolution on.
This is a special year. The reason there's 2 resolutions is in a what's called a reassessment year. The assessor reassesses property, and if there's an increase in values of the property, not counting new construction, the Louisiana Legislative Auditor would take, for instance, let's use the real numbers. So the 3 mill Hammond alternative program tax is adjusted down to 2.87 due to increases in property values. And then the local governing authority has to advertise, which we did, not in the legals. It has to be in like the normal newspaper section. And then you have the option to what's called roll forward the millage, to keep the millage at what the voters approved, so that the revenue can keep coming in. So we as the administration are recommending the roll forward, because if you do not roll the millage forward and let it go down, it does not readjust back to the voters' set millage until you have an election. The problem with the constitutional millage is there's never an election. So if you ever let that millage go down, you have no ability to ever go back to the original millage set by the Constitution. So there's a few more hoops to jump through in a reassessment year, which is why there's two resolutions. One to set the millage at the adjusted rate, and then the second one sets it to do the roll forward.
All right. So is there any public input on these resolutions? All right. Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. All right, we'll now move on and call to order our regular school board meeting for August 20th, 2024. Meeting is called to order. Ms. Jenkins, if you would, please call the roll.
Ms. Richards? Mr. Toller?
Here.
Ms. Abrams? Here. Mr. Westmoreland?
Present.
Mr. Duncan?
Here.
Mr. Anthony?
Here.
Mr. Moore?
Here.
Mr. Piazza?
Here.
Ms. Dominguez?
Present.
All right, if you would, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next item on the agenda is to consider approval of the board minutes from August 13th, 2024. Is there a motion to adopt the minutes as presented?
Motion to adopt. Second.
Motion is made by Mr. Westmoreland, seconded by Mr. Toller. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. Ask members to vote your devices.
Voting is open.
Yes, Ms. Cindy.
Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
Next item on our agenda is awards and recognitions. At this time, we're recognizing, I guess, Dr. Shannon Nichols has a special recognition for us.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Tonight, we would like to recognize 11-year-old student Mia Kate Heimel for winning Junior Miss Dance of America 2025. Mia entered into the TPSS virtual learning option this year from Trafton Academy and attends dance at A Touch of Class Performing Arts in Ponchatoula. She competed in Anaheim, California, representing Louisiana as Junior Miss Dance America Louisiana 2024, which she had won previously as a preliminary. She competed against contestants within the United States as well as other countries around the world. This dance pageant had them compete in various tasks such as an interview, talent performance, and 4 auditions, which include ballet, tap, jazz, and acrobatics. Since auditions are the way dancers obtain jobs in their occupations, the competition facilitates the same experience by having the dancers learn a new dance combination and perform it on the spot in front of the judges in small groups and sometimes in pairs. The judges constantly watch their auditions in the entirety to see how they learn and to see how they conduct themselves. Each audition is an hour to an hour and a half long. Mia, the daughter of Miss Lindsay Latino and Mr. Bryce Heimel, is a shining light who displays confidence when addressing a room full of intimidating adults. She is very impressive as she radiates a sweet, intelligent, and confident but humble spirit. We welcome Mia to our Tangi School community and are proud to say that she has accepted the challenge for the 24-25 school year. Congratulations, Mia.
Do we get a performance or no?
Mia, I do have a question. Is your mom like one of the dance moms off of television? No, she's pretty quiet.
All right, next item on the agenda is to consider our Personnel Committee report from August 13th, 2024. Is there a motion to adopt the report?
So moved.
Motion is made by Mr. Piazza,
Second.
seconded by Mrs. Dominguez. Is there any discussion on the motion? There's no public input. We'll call the question, ask members to vote your device.
Voting is open. Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
All right, next item on the agenda is another round of public input on the resolution that would adopt the adjusted millage rates. Is there any public input on that resolution number 1? All right, hearing none, Mr. McNeely, if you would come on up and again explain to us what this first resolution is about.
Sure. This first resolution adopts the adjusted millage, which I had said was as adjusted by the Louisiana Legislative Auditor after taking into account the reassessment. We do have to read the resolution in full, and the vote needs to be a roll call vote. state law.
Mr. McNeely, could you go back over what you said earlier, explaining, or do we have to adopt both of these?
Yes.
We do have to adopt
You
both.
first have to adopt this one, which adopts the adjusted millage. And then we'll adopt the second one, which adjusts the adjusted millage
To keep
back
it where
to
it
the
is.
full millage.
Okay, gotcha.
That's clear as mud.
If you have an hour and a half one day, I'll explain how we got to
No, I'm good. I trust-
Mr. Tolan
Just say
knows a lot
St.
about
Tammany.
mowing.
St. Tammany is why this is
Slaminy.
so convoluted.
All right. Do I need to read this?
I
Or
would
did
love for you to read
You
this.
were wanting me to do this, okay. All right, be it resolved by the Tangipahoa Parish School System of the Parish of Tangipahoa, Louisiana, in a public meeting held on August 20th, 2024, which meeting was conducted in accordance with the Open Meetings Law and the additional requirements of Article 7, Section 23C of the Louisiana Constitution, and revised statute 1705B, that the following adjusted millage rates be and they are hereby levied upon the dollar of the assessed valuation of all property subject to ad valorem taxation within said parish for the year 2024 for the purpose of raising revenue. Constitutional District 100, millage key 1070047 would be 3.91 mils. Hammond District Number 1 Alternative Program, millage key 1070048 would be 2.78 mils. Be it further, 2.87 mils.
Yeah.
Be it further resolved that the assessor of the parish of Tangipahoa shall extend upon the assessment roll for the year 2024 the taxes herein levied, and the tax collector of said parish shall collect and remit the same to said taxing authority in accordance with law. The foregoing resolution was read in full, the roll was called upon the adoption thereof, and the resolution was adopted by the following votes. So, Mr. McNeely, if we did not want to collect the alternative District Number 1 alternative tax, do we amend this resolution, or do we amend?
Yes.
We amend this one and the second one?
Yes. So the amendment would be, the appropriate amendment would be a motion to amend resolution number 1 to adjust the millage on the Hammond District Number 1 alternative program from 2.87 mils to 0 mils.
All right. Is there a motion to make that amendment so that we can at least discuss and debate it at this time?
I make the motion to adjust the current millages to reduce the alternative placement millage to 0.
Is there a second?
At least we can discuss it.
I'll second it, so we can discuss it.
All right. Second is made by Mr. Westmoreland. All right. So, Mr. McNeely, on the possibility of not collecting the alternative, the Hammond District alternative tax this year, I guess the questions for you would be on the money side. It's my understanding that that special revenue fund, which is collected solely for the purpose of providing funding for this particular program at the Hammond campuses, not the alternative campus, but just the Hammond campuses. But that fund ended last year with a fund balance of $1,099,259.
That's anticipated because we haven't all been audited yet, but yes, that is the current estimate for that.
And the program has cost
About 660,000,
about $660,000 per year.
yes.
And we've collected that balance because we've been collecting somewhere between $900,000 and $940,000 per year at the 3 millage rate.
Correct.
Okay. This tax is already scheduled to roll off the books in 2025. Is that your
That's my
understanding?
It
So we would,
expires in 2025. It
so
should
we
be
would
good.
collect it, if we were to collect it this year,
I don't think we would get it in 2025.
so this would be the last year that it,
I think so. Is that correct? I think so. Yes.
Okay,
It
so
expires in 2025.
so it expires in 2025. This would be the last year that we could collect it. So we already have enough money in that fund to fund this program for its last year of anticipated revenue.
Yes.
And then we would still have $500,000 left over. Correct?
Yes.
So there is no reason to collect it in this final year if we already have the money in the bank to fund it and still have $500,000 left over.
Right. If we collected it this year, then we would have basically 2.5 years worth of funding for the program instead of 1.5 years.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Well, I had one other question. So Ms. Stilley, I had some questions for you, and then I'll turn it over to Tom. So Ms. Stilley, it's my understanding from conversations with you that we now offer a similar program in the rest of our parish schools as to what has been offered in the Hammond school districts. Is that?
Yeah. So not all of our schools are doing this, but we are getting more each year who are wanting to go with this option on their campus.
So the schools that have requested having a program like this,
They've done it, yeah.
and we have provided funding to them without collecting taxes for those schools.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
yep.
And so how many schools are currently doing this?
Mr. Jenko may have a better idea. How many? 13?
13, and we have 2 that are in the process of locating individuals to run their programs.
13 other than the ones in Hammond? Or
Correct, yes.
so 13 schools outside of the ones in Hammond are doing this program without collecting any additional tax revenue for it?
Correct, yes.
And is there funding, if more schools want to do it outside of the Hammond area, is there funding available to provide that for those schools?
As Ms. Stilley mentioned, every school has been given the opportunity to add these classes, and these schools that we just mentioned have. So if the additional schools want this, we will make this happen for them. Yes, sir.
One of the challenges for our schools to do it, I mean, all of our schools, I think, would love to do it, but is the space. So they have to have a classroom, right? And in some of our schools, they don't have an extra classroom. But if they can find the space, we allow the teacher for that spot so that they can have that program.
Okay. All right, Mr. Toll, you had some questions?
Yeah, just a couple comments off of that. Using the information that you were putting out as far as having the funds in place to continue to pay for this for another year, and then part of another year, would only make sense if we were willing or planning to do away with those 13 positions. We're not planning on doing away with those 13 positions. So those 13 positions have to be absorbed into the general fund at some point. We understand that. So let's just make sure that we know our math, that we have enough to fund this for another year with this money and then another partial year. But at some point, we either have to let these 13 people go or absorb that into the general fund. My question is this: at the rate of 13 teachers for 4 schools, that's not what the other parish schools have. We may have schools like Chesbro has 1 teacher. Sumner Middle had 1 teacher last year that we don't have this year. That's not, in my mind, that's not equitable as far as what we're talking about between all our schools. If we want to figure out what the 13 teachers represent per capita in the Hammond schools and then make that all across the school district, then that would be fair. And if we can fund that through the general fund, I'm all for it. I would love to see a tax go away, would love to see Hammond not pay that tax. But just from the right now, looking at a year and a half from now, are we going to have the same program available at every school, regardless of space or regardless, we're going to have the same teachers allocated to match what that would make it fair? That's my question.
And you're right, I meant to put that on the record, Mr. Toller, that currently this program funds 2 teachers at Hammond Westside Montessori School, 1 paraprofessional interventionist at Hammond Westside Montessori School, 2 teachers at Hammond Eastside Magnet School, 1 teacher at Greenville Park, 1 paraprofessional at Greenville Park, 4 teachers at Hammond High School, 1 teacher at Woodland Park Early Learning Center, and 1 paraprofessional at Woodland Park Early Learning Center.
Unless I'm mistaken, we have 0 of these at Kentwood. We have 0 at Sumner Middle, 0 at Spring Creek, 0 at Sumner High, 1 at Chesbro Elementary, and 0 at Laranja as far as areas that I represent. So it's hard for me to say that this is fair, to say that if we make the statement that other schools are getting the same thing without paying the tax, that is not a fair statement in my opinion. But I would love to see the tax roll off.
And just to clarify, East Side and Hammond West Side have 2 teachers because there's an upper and a lower.
I mean, it's on the budget.
Yeah,
That may
so
be
it's-
one at each campus.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know.
it's one for the lower side and one for the upper, just.
Yeah, it funds 13 positions.
I'll just say, so if we let this stay the way it is, and this goes back on the ballot for 2025, the voters in Hammond can vote and say whether they want to keep it or not. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so my question is, why can't we let the voters decide that? They're the ones that are having to pay this, not us. I don't live in Hammond. I think Brett and Mr. Jerry's the only 2 that live in Hammond. Oh, you do? So why can't we let the voters of Hammond decide this? I mean, if they're that adamant that they don't want to continue paying this, then they should be able to have the vote.
Well, and my response to that is it's our job to vote on this every year. It's our job to determine what to collect based on the information that's available to us each year. The information that's available to us right now is that we have enough money. We have collected enough money already to keep this program funded through the time period that the voters have approved, and still have some money left over. And we also know that other portions of the parish are receiving funding out of the general fund for a similar program without having to pay an extra tax for it. So we have to decide whether we think it is equitable and right to make the Hammond voters pay an additional year for a program that they have already fully funded through the time period that they approved it for, and for a program that the rest of the parish is getting without having to pay for it.
Not the rest of the parish, parts of the parish.
Of course, Mr.
Mr. Jenko, do you know what other schools have this program? Because it doesn't sound like really anything on the north end other than Chesbro does. So you know which ones they are?
Sumner Middle had a model program last year, and there were some issues with the individual this year and retirement and so forth. I know Kentwood High has discussed it. Laranja High wants it, but there's a space issue there. Independence High, Dr. Sanders is looking for individuals, because when you talk to the schools that are successful with this, the key is the individuals that are in the classroom with it.
Yeah.
O.W. Dillon does not have it. Roseland does not have it. Chesbro has it. Spring Creek does not.
Okay.
So what are the other programs that do have it? The 13, do we know their names?
Yes, sir.
While you're answering that question, I'm wondering, since Hammond seems to have the bulk of the program and the administrators for it, can this mill be possibly reduced just to keep it alive in Hammond specifically? You know?
I mean, we can collect however much we want for this year, whatever rate we want to collect. If it's not 0, it can be up to 3. But again, it rolls off at the end of this year already. So,
Ponchatoula High, Ponchatoula Junior High, Camp Cooper, Martha Vineyard, Natal Benny, Neeson, Laranja Middle, Chesbro, Amite High, Amite West. I kept Sumner Middle in there because she has the foundation for it, and I added Independence High and Laranja High, which are looking for the individuals to fill it. And Laranja High needs the space. She's working on finding space for her place.
so Laranja High will be added if
Yes,
they
sir.
can find the space for
Yes,
it.
sir.
And I got a question too, Mr. Chairman. For administration-wise, I know, and to kind of point to Mr. Toller's point that, hey, if we plan on doing this equity across the board throughout the parish, how long do we expect to put one in every school? Do we have a kind of an idea as an administration on what the goal is per our timeline to get one in every school? Because I'm sure, like Mr. Toller said, it's needed across the board in a lot of other schools. Is there a time frame to kind of we're looking for?
When we started back in January of 2023, Ponchatoula High had the first program. Dr. Caminita did a great job with it, and people began to talk. And at that time, every school was asked, do you want this? So the schools that have added it to this point took the initiative to say, I want it. The ones that do not have it at this point have not stepped up to say, I want this program for various reasons on my school campus.
The two biggest the two challenges are finding the right person and then the space. So the principal at the school has to figure those two things out. And once they can do that, then they get back with us and we add them in on the list.
Yeah, because like I said, my biggest thing is, look, I understand both sides of the argument is we got schools that are getting it without having to pay a millage. You got some, though, who are not getting it at all. I see the equity there. I understand the concern. Also, that if we have the fund and it's already fully built for the next 2 years and when it's going to run out anyway, I see that as well. But the problem is to give up $1 million that fund currently 13 positions that we would have to eat into a general fund later down the line is concerning to me, because it's anybody understands, especially right now with inflation and stuff like that, it's hard to get a millage passed to begin with. It's tough. So it's going to either live or die on its own on the ballot box. The thing is that's 13 positions that we're going to have to eat if we're not fully prepared to issue this out across the parish, or our schools are not prepared to issue it out across the parish. I commend the idea, and I think it's a great one for the taxpayer. I think they can decide it on the ballot. Again, that's just my opinion on it. But if we don't have a set guideline on when these other schools are going to be able to have these programs, I don't see the equitable fashion in it.
Do we know about how much per family this actually costs? Oh, he's looking it up right now. But on that, spin on that too, I get nobody wants to pay taxes, but if you look at our neighboring parishes, Livingston and St. Tammany, everybody is quick to say how great they have it in those two parishes. But do you know why? They have millages and they pass taxes. That's something, we cannot brag when we say we have the lowest tax base school funded in the state, because that's nothing to be proud about. I'm just going to be honest. If we had a tax base, we wouldn't be in some of the situations that we're in. And you know, Livingston just rolled all of theirs up. They didn't go down on any of their taxable entities that had millages this time because they had to. They know that they got to do that for their school. So I just think this is something that we need to keep and let our voters decide in 2025 if they want to keep doing this or not. That should be left up to them.
Would you expound on the significance of the positions that are being paid for by this tax, how it affects the school system, and what effects it would have if these positions were not there?
The positions in the Hammond schools and the ones that our other schools have, the school building, classroom, is a way for kids that when they do have a mishap, instead of being placed at the alternative site, they're put into these classrooms. They keep up with their academics, this is the tier 1 academics, and they're given the social skills, and they are counseled by individuals that come in and work with them to make sure that we understand what the issues are. Are there any things that we can help to make sure that the issue does not happen again? So it's more than an academic catch-up. It is some social emotional, it is some counseling, it is what the child needs to help him or her make sure that they don't make that bad decision again.
So it's more or less a shadow of what we expect and hope happens at the alternatives.
I think when this program is run the way it's supposed to, this prevents kids from moving to the next step of the alternative site.
So answer Robin's question. The average homeowner pays about $40 per year for 3 meals.
Mr. Jinko, I have a quick question too for administration is, do we plan, because I also see where Mr. Duncan is coming from, where if we have a fund that's accumulating more than what we're actually spending on the program, does administration have any plans to maybe up these programs, either by more teachers or more programs that's going to cost us more? Do y'all foresee that in the next 2 years in Hammond? In Hammond only, yeah. like for the Hammond alternative programs, do we feel like we're going to be having to add more teachers, add more stuff to where it's going to justify the amount we're collecting over?
Well, I mean, if school ABC Elementary in Hammond says I have 2 positions, but I need a third one and can justify why he or she would need that third one to meet the ideas of the alternative tax, and we went to accounting and Mr. McNeely and it was in there, I do not see why we couldn't raise 13 positions to 14 positions.
Because that's my point, is we're seeing
Correct,
growth.
space is the big thing.
Right, we're seeing growth in Hammond, so it's not beyond belief that we may have to use some of this excess money, right?
I wish I could stand here and tell you we couldn't, but hopefully, if we're doing our social emotional learning classes and our mentors are working, that we may not have to tap into it too much.
Mr. Mingus.
So, Mr. Jinko, so you're saying that like our other schools provide these classes, but is, just for clarification, so is this is a classroom that we're using that probably we could use for a regular ed class that maybe we're taking away an optional classroom to lower the number in the classroom? And also, does this teacher count in the number teacher that's allotted for that school, or is this an additional teacher above the allotted number?
The space that the individuals are in a classroom, just like a math class, an English class, etc. And the individuals that are working in these classrooms are above that school's general fund allotment.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
Yes,
But the
ma'am.
classroom, in a sense, if we take, in all of our overcrowded campuses, at a lot of our campuses, we're probably taking a classroom away that, so we're not winning here because we're putting more kids in another classroom so we can free up that classroom. So we're all kind of giving and taking, is what I'm trying to say, Mr. Duncan. I mean, I just feel like this money
That's ridiculous.
would continue on at least for another 2.5 years instead of 1.5 years. It's only going to benefit our kids. And we have 13 employees that depend on, this money that we pay them.
Go ahead, Tom.
Last thought that I have on this was, and I understand the thought of being fair across this, why collect taxes from someone? It's not fair to the Hammond voters. If they're paying a tax and other students are getting this without having to pay the tax, that is a issue that we need to solve. What I want to make clear is I want the Hammond voters to know, because they voted this tax in because they saw a need for alternative education in the Hammond area. If we do away with this, their system will change. We cannot afford to do 13 teachers in those 4 schools unless we can afford to do that at the same ratio at all 30 campuses. Does that make sense? So just to be clear, if Hammond area voters say, we want these extra teachers, this is above and beyond what we're able to do at Sumner, at Kentwood, at Amite, at Laranja, at Independence. We want these extra students. We want these extra teachers to cover this area that we've determined that is a need. So just being fair across the board, I understand the desire for not paying a tax that everybody else is not paying, but understand they will not get the services that everybody else is getting without it.
So, just so the board is ready, I do not anticipate that Hammond is going to agree to renew this tax next year, which is when it would have to be renewed, if the rest of the parish is going to continue to get this program without having to pay the tax. So the next time you guys put this on the ballot, you need to be ready to put it on the ballot for the entire parish to either start paying or not paying. So, I mean, that's coming up next year. So it's, if it is this board's position that you think it's worthwhile asking the voters of this parish to continue to fund this program, even though we've been able to find a way to fund it without an additional tax the last 2 years at 13 schools.
Maybe not at the same rate.
Maybe not at the same rate, but
That's my point.
don't anticipate that Hammond is going to do this again next year. So just you need to be ready to come up with another plan.
Brett, in all fairness, I would say I see your point. I see your point, but the voters did vote this tax in.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, the Hammond area was targeted because of the title that was placed on the tax for the alternative learning. I think alternative education was the way it was justified, only presenting, taxing the constituents of the Hammond area, the district that is being taxed right now. But what we're talking about now is the entire parish benefiting from it. So we're talking a different,
Right.
and I believe that the voters will go for it once they understand, what this tax does.
And that's all I'm saying, Jerry, is that
No,
if the rest of the parish agrees, then the
Yeah.
rest of the parish needs to vote to pay the tax. Right now, only Hammond is paying the tax, and we as a board have collected enough to fund the program through the time period that the Hammond voters said that they would pay for the tax, and still have $500,000 left over. So I don't see any justification for continuing to collect the tax, but that's up to this board. But again, the board is now saying that they agree that the rest of the parish needs it. Just be ready to make the argument to the rest of the parish that they ought to also start paying for it, and be ready to explain to the citizens of Hammond why they should agree to pay this tax again when we unnecessarily collected it this year.
May I make one more quick point that I think is important? I'm looking at these assessments, and it appears that, correct me if I'm wrong, that people that live south of 12 that also live in Hammond, are they contributing to this tax? Because if so, no. So south of 12 is not.
The taxing district
Okay.
is north of I-12 up to Natalbany.
And Mr. Trent, you said it was about $40 a year per household, average.
All right. Is there any public input before we call the question? All right, this was just on the amendment, the proposed amendment to collect zero on the Hammond alternative tax. We'll call the question, ask members to vote your devices.
So Brett, just clarifying, if we vote no, we're not approving, we're leaving it as it is.
If you vote no, yes, you're leaving the resolution as it was presented, which was the 2.87 mils.
Voting is open.
Do we have to do this by,
No, this is an amendment, you can do this by.
Voting is closed. Motion fails with Mr. Duncan voting
Okay.
yes.
All right, so now we'll take up the resolution as presented. Is there any other discussion on resolution number 1 as presented?
Need a motion to adopt?
Second.
A motion is made by Mr. Westmoreland, seconded by Mr. Toller. There's no discussion, no additional public input. We'll call the question. This needs to be a roll call vote, Ms. Jenkins.
Okay. Ms. Dominguez?
Oh, yes.
Mr. Duncan?
No.
Mr. Toller?
Yes.
Ms. Abrams?
yes?
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Westmoreland?
Yes.
Mr. Piazza?
Yes.
Mr. Anthony?
Yes.
All right, the resolution is adopted.
Yes.
Next item is public input on resolution number 2, which is the resolution on whether to roll forward the adjusted rate, and I'll read that one onto the record at this time. All right, be it resolved by the Tangipahoa Parish School System of the Parish of Tangipahoa, Louisiana, in a public meeting held on August 20th, 2024, which meeting was conducted in accordance with the Open Meetings Law and the additional requirements of Article 7, Section 23C of the Louisiana Constitution and revised statute 14:1705B, that the taxing district voted to increase the millage rates, but not in excess of the prior year's maximum rates on all taxable properties shown on the official assessment roll for the year 2024, and when collected, the revenues from said taxes shall be used only for the specific purposes for which said taxes have been levied. Said millage rates are Constitutional District number 100, 1070047, adjusted rate 3.91 mils, 2024 levy 4.06 mils. Hammond Alternative District Number 1 alternative tax, millage key 1070048, adjusted rate 2.87 mils, 2024 levy 3 mils. Hammond District Number 1 Hammond Magnet Schools tax, millage key 1070085, no adjusted rate, 2024 levy 15 mils. Be it further resolved that the assessor of the parish of Tangipahoa shall extend upon the assessment roll for the year 2024 the taxes herein levied, and the tax collector of said parish shall collect and remit the same to said taxing authority in accordance with law. The following resolution was read in full, the roll was called on the adoption thereof, and the resolution was adopted by no less than 2/3 of the total membership of the taxing authority voting in favor as required by Article 7, Section 23C of the Louisiana Constitution and revised statute 47:1705B. Is there any
This is to roll forward, and just in case you have a question, the reason the Hammond magnet tax looks different is because it just renewed, so it's not, it did not have to be rolled forward. It was just set at 15 by the taxpayers.
All right, any discussion on the resolution?
Motion to adopt.
There's a motion to adopt the resolution by Mr. Westmoreland. Is there a
Second.
seconded by Mr. Piazza. Any further discussion? Any public input? Hearing none, we'll call the question. This is a roll call vote. Ms. Jenkins, if you would, please call the roll.
Ms. Dominguez?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan?
No.
Mr. Toller?
Yes.
Ms. Abrams?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Westmoreland?
Yes.
Mr. Piazza?
Yes.
Mr. Anthony?
Yes.
Motion passes with Mr. Duncan voting no.
Mr. Duncan, I did pull up the elections for next year. The March 29th election, which is what it would need to be on to be assessed for next year and renew. The deadline for the proposition is January the 2nd, which means it has to go to the State Bond Commission before that, which means we need to be done before we get into December, which means the deadline for anything you want to do with either renewal or expansion of that district needs to be handled probably in September or October. So we need to be on this pretty quick. If you remember for the magnet tax, we kind of got jammed up because of the dates are so far out.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, next is superintendent's reports and recommendations. Ms. Stilley?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I'd like to say that on our priorities for this year, which is really about student attendance, having the students at school every day, and building a positive school culture, and providing interventions for students. Last week, during our first full week of school, we had 6 schools that met the challenge on attendance that had 95% or higher on their attendance during the first week. And that's Roseland Montessori, O.W. Dillon, in Kentwood, Laranja Elementary, Spring Creek, Champ Cooper, and Chesbro. We had 3 elementary schools that met the challenge on interventions during the first week with 95% usage rate or higher in the intervention programs. Intervention is providing those students what they need to improve their reading levels or math skills. And those 3 schools were Spring Creek, Chesbro, and Laranja Elementary. And then we had 4 middle schools that accepted the challenge of 90% or higher, and that was Amite Westside, Jules Sumner, Neesom, and Laranja Middle. So we want to recognize those schools. Each week, we'll be continuing to look at our attendance rates, as well as our interventions for students to look at usage reports. Also, our coffee talk today was at Ponchatoula High School, and I had Mr. Trent Anthony join us there today to highlight some of the things at Ponchatoula High School. So if you didn't get to watch that, you'll want to do that. And also sort of talking about the new PJ's Coffee franchise at Ponchatoula High School that will be opening soon. So that's exciting. Also, Mr. Moore, I know social emotional learning is close to your heart, And today, Mr. Anthony and I were at Vineyard Elementary School, and the teachers, the math teachers, were having their professional learning time together, and Crystal Hooper and Amy Fairchild were there to just show them little, like, quick ways that they could incorporate social, emotional things within their math time. So they're, both of those ladies who are SEL coaches in the parish are out and about working with our teachers. So that was kind of good to see that today in action at Vineyard. So anyway, it's a great first week, and we'll continue to keep everybody updated on our attendance numbers and on our intervention usage programs. Thank you.
Great. All right, we'll move to board member comments. We'll start with Mr. Anthony.
Oh, thank you. I did enjoy spending the day with Miss Stilley. We walked 5 of the 6 Ponchatoula schools. We just missed Perrin, which I'm sure we'll catch up and visit that one soon as well. I'm kind of preaching to the choir here. There's not a big audience, but hopefully somebody's watching, because I was just so impressed with these schools. I'm telling you, if these parents that sometimes have some habitual complaining habits, if they came in and saw how well-oiled a machine these schools are, they'd be totally impressed. I'm serious. I'm not saying that because I'm a cheerleader for the school system. It's impressive. And I think we have outstanding principals. And I'm going to add, in case anybody's watching, that I've gotten to a point where I won't stand for people spreading false information about our school system or talking negatively about it, because it's just out of control. Because there's too much good happening, and it's insulting to me, and it's insulting to my students that attend these schools. It's insulting to the students that I represent. So that being said, I hope everybody gets the opportunity to one day walk on one of our campuses and see how good of a job these principals do and how much these children try when they're at school, because it's quite impressive. That's all I got. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Abrams.
I want to piggyback on the PJs at Ponchatoula High. So everyone knows that I started a pageant system for little girls with special needs. It's called Very Special Miss Louisiana. We had some of them here last year. Well, this year we're going to be doing it September 13th and 14th at the Mission Church. And Ponchatoula High School has stepped up to the plate, and they're helping us make all the decorations in their art department. It's for the Wizard of Oz is the theme. So they're making us the big apple trees and the Wicked Witch's, the house and the tornadoes. They're making all this stuff for us. But not only that, WGNO has reached out, and they want to do a piece on the students that are actually doing this artwork. And then they're also going to do a story on the PJ's Coffee, because if people don't know, all of our special needs students at Ponchatoula High School will be running the PJ's Coffee. So it all ties in together, because everybody knows that I'm very dear and near with TARC and people with special needs. So make sure you watch. It's going to we're going to film it on September, the first Wednesday in September. I think it's September the 3rd. And it's going to air that week on WGNO for Ponchatoula High School and all that they're doing to help us.
Mr. Piazza?
I just want to say that so far so good. It has been a smooth start. I've gotten to visit pretty much every school in my district. Principals have done nothing but praise the new cell phone policy and how students are actually engaged and are actually really following the rule. They were kind of surprised. I know I would be if I'm thinking about a teenager putting their phone away. You know, we haven't had success with that really in the past, but I guess now with it being law, and that, I honestly think a lot of students are really excited about it. I've seen them actually talking with staff members and making connections on campus. It's really a good sight to see. So it was good to hear from our administrators and our staff members, our educators, that they're excited about this school year coming up. They're doing a great job. Like Mr. Trent, I'll echo everything he said as far as the good things we offer here in Tangipahoa. It's very easy to get bogged down in the things we do wrong, but it's really inspiring to see what we get right, especially with our kids and how hard they try, and our staff members that go above and beyond for our students. And like Ms. Abrams said, we look at our neighbors and we always like to brag about how they're doing better. They fund it better. They invest it and they put their money where their mouth is. Granted, we also don't have the industry a lot of those parishes have, but we do the very best we can with what we have. And we have some rock star people on our campuses that work every day that could go somewhere else. So I want to thank them from the bottom of my heart of what they do and for what they are standing for every day when they enter a classroom, and just block out the noise on Facebook. Again, we have a lot of things we got to work on as a parish, and I think we've done our job to put forward that effort, and I can't wait to see what we do future efforts with that. So I'm just very proud to be a part of Tangipahoa.
Mr. Moore?
Okay, number one, I want to give a shout out to our teachers. I'm going to always start there because I have such a grave appreciation for our teachers. I don't know what kind of week you've had these past couple of weeks, but you've survived. And for me, that is something that needs to be commended. I know that a lot of opinions are that, you know, our parents should be doing more in helping with the attitudes and the dispositions of our children. But I want you to keep something in mind, and that is that most parents spend less time with their children in the mornings before they go to school and in the evenings when they come home than you do as teachers. And I know it's kind of hard to maybe wrap your heart around this, but when they're away from home, you guys actually are parenting, in as much as the employees at a nursery are responsible for a child's welfare and growth during the day when that child is at the nursery. We kind of still got them in the stage before they become adults. So these are not adults that we have in school. We can call them young adults, but overall, when you look at it, what we have are children preparing for a transition into adulthood. So embrace them. My prayers are that, you know, you will be able to hear what I'm saying and feel it with the heart that I'm trying to deliver it or convey it, and understand that these children see you as adults. They see you as authority. How you administer that authority is always up to you. You can do it with love, or you can do it with aggression. So my prayers are that you guys are going to be strong, and God is going to give you the wisdom to kind of gel all that together. You know, our children are the reason that we're here. Our children are the reason that you're there. So I just pray that you embrace that.
Mr. Westmoreland?
Yes, thank you. I'd just like to say I'm proud of the schools for accepting the challenge that the superintendent has put out and her staff, the administration. I believe that most of the schools are accepting the challenge. The students, their compliance with our cell phone policies. I mean, I think things are going to only get better, and I'd just like to say congratulations to everyone for that.
Mr. Minguez?
Yes, I'd like to say that same thing about the cell phones. I think it's been a positive thing for sure, and it's been a lot less troublesome for us since it was a state law. I ran into Senator Mizell today, and she said that she's gotten several, notices and emails from across the state really thanking her because she was the one who pushed it through, and it wasn't an easy battle to push it through. And I think it's been very beneficial, so I made a point to thank her that it was helping us. Also, I was afforded the opportunity to attend the what they call TRACK, which was Tangipahoa Reshaping Attitudes for Community Change. And it was all about the issues of drugs and vaping today. And we had one of our lieutenants from the Sheriff's Department there, and we also had a couple people from the Louisiana Governor's Office. And it's amazing the apparatuses that look like a watch. They look like the most common thing that you would never know is a vape, and that's our people are using these as vape, and how dangerous it is, and how many different drugs that are going around in our communities, and it's just a very scary thing. I would love for those two ladies to be invited to, speak to our students in some of our SEL classes or our workshops, because they're free. They gave the most interesting knowledge, and I think we need to teach our children younger, because they don't even realize that a box on the counter that looks like Jolly Ranchers is actually gummy marijuanas. It's really sad, it's scary. So I enjoyed doing that today. I was able to really network with a lot of people. And then on another note, this week, I don't know what it is, but I've had like 4 or even 5 classmates pass away this week from Huntsville High School. I've had the lady who was in the lunchroom cooking my meals with my grandmother for 30 years. She passed away this week. My first Girl Scout leader with my mom passed away this week, and those 2 ladies were 2 of my very best friends from Cham Cooper days, died this week. So it's been like, oh my goodness, who else is going to pass away? But to have 4 classmates die in 1 week and then one a couple weeks ago, it's kind of hits home that we need to like take advantage of that. Your life is good, it's important, and as Trent said, don't be nitpicking about every little thing. Be grateful that we have what we have, and we do have issues in our school, of course. You know, our air conditioners are giving us issues, but if you were at home and you had an air conditioner breakdown, it's not like I-Dream Regina's going to come in there and fix it. You got to hire somebody, you got to get somebody there. Our guys are working hard to fix those things, but yet we're being so beat up and so criticized that we're just like sitting here wishing the kids could be hot, which is terrible that anybody would even think that of anybody. So I hate that people are so quick to judge us. I wish that you stop and think about how precious life is, and that we all are people, and that we're trying to do the best job that we can, because tomorrow you might not be here, just like all of my classmates that I'm losing, you know, because we're at that age. So anyway, I'm glad that we're having a good year. We've started out good. We haven't had a whole lot of problems. We've had a few issues, but nothing major yet. So hopefully everybody's going to stay on the right track and accept the challenge, Mr.
Mr. Toller.
Just want to echo again the phones. I think this has been a huge success, and I think it will continue to be a big success. Class that I went through this summer with the military, it was a technology-free class. We actually took the phones away from adults, including myself, and locked them away. And that was shock for the adults. So I know this is a shock for the teenagers, and having a 14-year-old, I really thought this was going to be more difficult than it was, but she was like, no, just turn it off. You know, because she has cheer, she keeps it with her, but she turns it off in the morning, puts it in her bag, and takes it out after cheer. So I applaud the students that are participating in this, and I encourage the teachers to now work with us on their usage and spend more time teaching and less time texting or posting on Facebook. Not calling anybody out, but it happens. And then the second part of that is I think we will continue to see a reduction in fights, because so many fights were filmed, and they were filmed, the film would start rolling before the fight, which tells me that it was staged. So I'm seeing that to be a big improvement in our school, and will continue to be. And I encourage people to take that one step further. I know Brett has mentioned this before with his family, and we've started doing it when I came back from my trip this year. Phones don't go to the table. Phones don't go in a restaurant. You know, you can do without that for a little while. And I encourage families to find that next step to take this to, because this thing is addictive, and it really is the source of a lot of evil, and we have to control that. While I was gone, also, we had some new principals. I want to make sure to Chris Vassell at Sumner, Miss Rosa at Spring Creek, Miss Melanie Johnson at Chesbro. Excited to see them taking the helm of those schools. Excited to see what they're doing. Also, Ms. Rosalind, or Dr. Rosalind Varnado, Supervisor of Instruction. So happy to see those positions being filled. Also, and I'll close this out by saying, Trent, I applaud you in defending the school system on social media. I posted a picture of Darby the first day of school because I was so proud of her. She's like a young lady to me, going in the 9th grade, and then that one post on Tangi Parents or whatever that was that Brett told me to drop off, you know, and I did drop it off, by the way. Good. But I had other people screenshot and saying, I think this is about you. That was so hard for me not to respond to, and so hard for my daughter not to respond to when she realized that it was about her. But there's enough negative in this world that I don't want to add to it. So if people want to talk about me, that just means they're not talking about somebody else, and I could really care less, because Darby was beautiful in her uniform and it fit just fine. So that being said, thank you.
Ms. Steele, you had
Yeah.
an additional comment?
Yeah, just two things. One is if you get a calendar invite from me, board members, on school visits, it's not like you have to go, but I'm just letting you know that I'm going to the schools in your area throughout the year. And my goal is to put the time schedule in the notes of the invite. So you may be able to join for part of it, or one school, or all of them, whatever. No pressure, but if you want to join along, that's great. And so if you see that, just don't think, oh, what is this? So it's optional. The other thing for our Ponchatoula members, board members, I don't know if y'all received that email from Miss Lorinda Elsie about tomorrow. They're having like a pep rally back to school. I think there's going to be some cheerleader. Well, let me back up. Tomorrow is the first day for pre-K and K. All of them. They've had the girls, and they've had last week, and then Monday and Tuesday they had the boys. Well, tomorrow is the big day. They're all showing up. So they're at Perrin, which is our only just pre-K school. They're having like a back-to-school rally, and they're having some cheerleaders there, band, and make it a big deal for the kids when they get to school. So if you, I think she told me about 8:45, 8:30, 8:45. So if y'all could make that, or if you want to make it to see it, I'm going to try to get down there tomorrow and see that as well. So I just wanted to mention those two things, Mr. Duncan. Thanks for giving me a second.
Of course.
Can I get one more that I forgot to do? Happy birthday to Miss Janice Richardson. Happy birthday to Miss Janice Richardson. She's not here tonight. Yeah, her birthday's tomorrow. She wasn't here tonight because she went out of town for her birthday. So as somebody who always brings us joy on this board, I hope she has a wonderful day on her birthday.
Great. All right, next is to move towards litigation matters. So I will accept a motion at this time to enter executive session to consider the cases of Joshua Poche versus Tangipahoa Parish School System.
So move.
And also we have we will also be entering executive session to consider another matter where we've received a threat of litigation.
Second.
All right, so a motion is made by Mr. Piazza, seconded by Mr. Westmoreland to enter executive session to consider those two matters. Is there any objection? Hearing no objection, the motion is agreed to, and we'll enter executive session at this time.
Channel 17, proudly serving the Florida parishes.
Board's returned from executive session on the matter of Joshua Poche versus Tangipahoa Parish School System. There is no action. On the other matter that was on the agenda regarding a threat of litigation, there's also no action. There being no other business there's no public input, general public input, being no other business to come before the board, this meeting is adjourned.